The interest rates, everybody's talking about these days. What's happening with the rates, where the rate's going to be next year, and should I buy a home or wait right now?
Yeah, that's the burning questions that most home buyers have these days. So we're going to ask a lending expert to give us some insight. Today's expert, we're here with Chris Rivera from Cross Country Mortgage. Chris, in the beginning of the year, we were at about 3% for the interest rates. Now we're at about 7%. Is there anything you could speak to on that?
Sure, Brian. So as you said, interest rates were hovering about 3% at the beginning of the year, and they've just skyrocketed. We're in the mid 7s now. Depending on loan program, loan amount, FICO score, you could see your interest rate anywhere from the high 6s all the way to the mid 7s. And there's a lot of pressure for rates to continue to increase. As you know, the Feds did increase rates again by another 3/4 points, all of which is just putting a lot of pressure on rates to increase as we end the year. Some people are thinking we're going to see in the neighborhoods of 8%. We know rates are headed higher, and the reason for it is just inflation. With inflation pressures come the Fed's policy of raising short-term rates, which is really designed to kind of help curb inflation. And as they raise rates and kind of controlling the monetary policy and the access to the funds, we are starting to see less and less home sales. And that has a lot to do with the increase in rates. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to continue that way. The Feds really are looking at the inflation numbers. They want to make sure that they have that under control before they do anything else. And so we do know that they're going to raise rates again in December. We're not sure exactly how much more, but they are going to raise them. And when they do that, we'll see rates go up into the 8%. At some point, we're going to start seeing inflation kind of stabilize. And that's really what we need to see for the Feds to feel comfortable with the market on a go-forward basis. If we're right and we start to see the inflation numbers start to come down after the fourth quarter of 2022, we're probably going to see the Feds pull back on their policy and at least stabilize rates. We'll have a cooling of the market, so rates can at least flat. So when we look at rates and we look at the direction of rates, I think we're going to see rates rise for the end of 2022. We'll see them stabilize in the early part of 2023. And then somewhere in late 2023, we'll start seeing them ease back down. And it may even happen sooner than that, because the one thing that the Feds haven't said, which is a glaring problem in our economy, is the recession. I know people keep pushing the recession off, but all indicators are here that we're in a recession. And once they label us in a recession, and the Feds then have to counteract that at some point in time, that's when rates will start coming back to us. Now that's probably going to happen in sometime in 2023. A lot of economic advisors right now are telling us we're in a recession, but the federal government won't tell us we're in a recession. They really don't want to labelize the economy because they think that would be counterproductive of what they're trying to do. But at some point, we're going to have to label it as recession. Now, why am I talking recession? Because I think that's really what's going to drive rates down. And when I look at rates going into 2023, I think we're going to see them stabilize and slide back down, possibly below 6% again, which is still a high rate, but it's still an attainable rate and something that could help you purchase a home.
So Chris, if you were a home buyer today, what would be the reasons that you would not wait to buy a home and purchase today?
They always ask me, is this the right time to buy? And it's pretty much the same answer. You should buy when you can afford to buy. You should buy when you can afford to buy. That's just the plain and simple truth. And the reason why is because I really believe real estate is the single greatest investment that you can make for your equity wealth and into retirement. As we've experienced over the last 3 years, and it was so difficult to get into a piece of property just because the inventory was so low, rates were so low, that there was a lot of buyer demand for it. But what we're experiencing now is something different. We're seeing rates creeping up to 8%. It's really stopped a lot of the buyer demand, which is putting more pressure on the sellers to have to sell. And I think it's a great time for buyers to buy because right now there's less competition. And there's a phrase that's going around our industry, and I truly believe this to be true. It's marry the property and date the rate. And you know that real estate over the last 2 or 3 years, when a good property came on the market, within the first weekend there were 20, 30 offers. And really what fueled that was the low interest rates. Money was so cheap, we're talking rates that were below 3%, that it made sense for people to buy. But the problem with it is you couldn't get a property. There was just too much competition for the scarcity of properties that were out there. And that problem has really subsided now because of the rise in rates. The demand has kind of cooled off. The sellers are feeling the pinch now. They're trying to sell their properties, but they're having to wait longer before they get a really good offer. Now you have an opportunity to get yourself into a property, something that you couldn't do 2-3 years ago because there was just so much competition. But we talk about marrying the property because this is something that is for your family. It's your home, it's your roots that you're gonna establish in the community. And you're only dating the rate because what we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years is people refinance. Whatever rate they get initially when they buy the property is not going to be their end rate. They are going to refinance. So really what you want to do is marry the property, date the rate, and just let the market play out the way it's going to play. When rates come back to us, and we will see them back into the sub 5s and sub 4% ranges again, you're able to refinance. But the one thing that's true is you cannot refinance your property if you don't own property. So the first thing you've got to do is to purchase property. And that's why I think it's a great time to buy right now, just because you have less competition, you have motivated sellers that are willing to help you, and then you just let the market play the way it's going to play out, and rates will come back to you, and you'll be able to refinance into a much lower monthly payment and establish those roots for your family in that community. I have a lot of clients that I talk to that are thinking about waiting until interest rates come back. And they believe interest rates are going to come down, but they don't want to buy now because the rates are too high. And they feel that if they just wait, they're going to get themselves a better deal in a year or two when rates come back down. And I would really, caution people who are trying to do that. And yes, lower rates mean a lower monthly payment, and that's what we should want, but that's something you're going to get. And remember I talked about marrying the property and dating the rate. Well, this really talks to that, where we know rates are going to come back down, and you'll be able to refi into that low rate. But if you think you're going to wait until rates come back down and then go back into the buying process, you're really doing yourself a disservice, because at that point what you're doing is waiting for that demand to build back up, and you're going to be in the same position you were 2 and 3 years ago, where you're writing offers and you're not getting them accepted because there's too many buyers for the selected amount of properties that are on the market. So I'd really caution you from thinking that way. And if you can purchase property, you should purchase property when you can, and you can get pre-approved for the sale price that you're looking for.
Well, I wanted to thank you a lot, Chris, for all the insightful tips. I'm sure it helped a lot of people out there. And here's just 3 fun facts about Chris Rivera.